Hello, I'm Kelly Polukonda. I'm a current graduate student at Morningside College. I'm also a teacher at the Silvis Community School District. My presentation is on the effects of music and movement with kindergarten sight word skills. Beginning with the problem. The Center on Children and Families at the Brookings Institute found that 48% of low-income kindergartners starting school are not considered kindergarten ready. Being kindergarten ready is having a basic foundation of letter ID and letter sounds. It was found that 48% of students did not have this. This can impact sight word inventory, which impacts fluency and comprehension, impacting students' reading skills. The goal is to increase sight word inventory, which will increase fluency and increase comprehension, increasing overall reading achievement. Reason for investigation. My students were low-income kindergarten students. They also enjoyed music and movement in the classroom. Knowing their background of coming from low-income homes, a lot of my students struggled with exposure and building their sight word inventory. Knowing this, but also knowing that they enjoy music and movement, I was able to combine both for this study. In this study, FastBridge Early Reading was used to collect data. FastBridge is mandated by the state of Iowa, and it also, in our district, we use it for benchmarking and progress monitoring. Literature review framework. A number of studies I researched found and supported increasing sight words, also known as high-frequency words. A study from the Topics in Early Childhood Education on Early Intervention found that increasing a student's sight word inventory can be positive, especially increasing their reading skills. From the Australian Journal of Education and Developmental Psychology, it was found that continuous reading failures can impede students' growth in school. So letting them go by or not providing the correct type of intervention with data collection can have long-term effects. From the Journal of Reading Partners, it was found that 8.7 million students, specifically low-income kindergartners to fifth graders, are not reading on grade level. This shows that this is not an issue just in kindergarten or early childhood, but for low-income students throughout elementary school. Literature review framework continued. The Journal of Research and Educational Effectiveness found that using scripted reading programs to teach and focus on phonics skills has yielded positive results. A scripted reading program is usually provided by the district and also a teacher manual and provides quite a bit of teacher and student materials. The Journal of Behavioral Education found that teaching reading skills in isolation, specifically using flashcards, can yield positive results too. Reading skills could be letter I sounds, letter identification. For this specific study, it was sight words. Technology and applications also can be used to increase students' sight words or reading words correctly. A journal done from the Journal of Remedial and Special Education specifically used technology and applications in iPads and tablets. A study done from Reading and Writing used computer software for sight words. Both yielded positive results. There are some potential problems from previous studies. It was found that baseline data is key to compare. So before beginning your study, collecting a baseline data to have throughout, especially at the end, is very important. The Journal of Reading and Writing found that early intervention is key. As stated earlier, 8.7 million students that were low income, kindergarten to fifth grade, are not reading on grade level, and also continuous reading failures can impede students' growth. It was found that identifying these students early on and providing positive and correct early intervention is key. All of this research does lead to a gap in the research. The gap is to see the significant impact of adding music and movement, specifically with literacy skills and low-income students. My purpose statement: the purpose of this study was to determine the impact of adding music and movement to traditional sight word instruction for low-income kindergartners. This will help address the gap in the research. From this purpose, the hypothesis was developed. It was predicted that incorporating music and movement into daily sight word instruction, kindergarten students would improve overall would improve sight word fluency and increase overall reading achievement. The methods used. There were 18 participants in one kindergarten classroom. There were no special education students, and all participants received Title I services. They were a mix of male and female and kindergarten age, 5 and 6 years old. Materials used. During the baseline phase, Journey's curriculum was the only material used. The Journey's curriculum is a district-provided curriculum, teacher-scripted program, and teacher and student materials. The intervention phase used this Journey's curriculum along with the Heidi's Sing and Spell the Sight Word songs. This was used through Apple Music on the teacher's laptop. The procedure for this study followed 3 steps. The first step was collecting baseline data with a baseline assessment. This was followed by a 6-week baseline phase. In this baseline phase, there was only traditional sight word instruction using Journey's curriculum. This was followed by a midpoint assessment using the same assessment from FastBridge in the baseline to collect midpoint data. This was followed by a 6-week intervention phase. During this intervention phase, traditional sight word instruction was still taught with Journeys, now with elements of music and movement using Heidi's Sing and Spell the Sight Word songs. This was followed by a post-assessment using the same assessment from baseline, midpoint, and post. The procedure. The assessment used was FastBridge Early Reading. This specifically was used Sight Word Progress Monitoring Booklet, Passage 5. This was a 1-minute sight word fluency assessment. FastBridge is evidence-based assessment. Interrelator reliability has no threat. This is because it is scored electronically and there's no subjectivity by scoring by hand. Interrelator reliability is 0.99. Also, there's alternate form reliability. This is because similar content, sight words, are shown in different sequence. Results. Just as a reminder, the purpose of this study was to test the effects of adding music and movement to traditional sight word instruction. Dependent sample t-tests were used to analyze and compare data. It was found that there was a significant increase in sight word scores in both phases of this study. As you can see, pre-test to midpoint, midpoint to post. The mean does not vary far from each other. Looking now at the results table, you can see that the mean rises at each data point. As stated before, this shows that there was growth that occurred in both phases of this study. Now looking at the results figure. This shows the mean of student scores. If you look, the error bars are 1 standard deviation around the mean. You can see that the standard deviation and error bars are not that spread out. This shows that the student scores, the participant scores, did not vary far from each other. Implications. There is an impact on students, specifically their learning environment. During the traditional part of this study, students were sitting and listening to instruction. This changed during the intervention phase. Students were not just sitting and listening, but they were up, dancing and moving, singing their sight words. Exposure. A lot of my students coming from low-income backgrounds lack exposure to different text types and different words. They were exposed throughout the entire length of this study during the baseline and intervention to different text types and different words with the Journey's curriculum and Heidi's Sing and Spell the Sight Word songs. Student voice was also impacted. During the traditional part of this study, students really didn't use their voice. They were sitting and listening to instruction. That changed during the intervention. They were using their voice more to sing and to dance their sight words. There's also an impact on teachers. Teacher voice. During traditional sight word instruction, the teacher used their voice more while students sat and listened. This changed during the intervention. During the intervention, the teacher was not just using her voice, but students' voice along with theirs. Learning environment. The teacher impacted students' learning environment from changing from sitting and listening to now students moving and going around the carpet, singing and dancing. There are limitations of this study. Small sample size. Only one class was used with only 18 participants. One grade level. Only kindergarten was used. Consistency and length. The majority of this study, from baseline going into intervention, was done during the winter months. There was some disruption of consistency of instruction due to inclement weather. Motivation in home. A lot of my students lack the correct type of resources or support at home to be motivated or practice their sight word skills. Recommendations for future research. Sample size. It is recommended using more than 18 participants. Using more than one classroom will increase participant size. Multiple grade levels. Kindergarten is not the only grade level that teaches sight words. They are taught throughout elementary school. Using multiple grade levels throughout elementary will provide different types of data to test the effect of this study. Continuous data collection along with consistency and length are kind of the same. Continuous data collection can be possible by lengthening the study being longer than 12 weeks. That should help with consistent instruction, especially during the winter months if it has inclement weather. Continuous data collection will provide multiple data points, possibly from the beginning to the end of the school year. It is also recommended finding motivation for home for students to be practicing their sight word skills at home and also parent involvement. Conclusion. The purpose of the study was to test the effects of adding music and movement to traditional sight word instruction. It was found that the intervention and the baseline phases of this study showed growth. Showing growth in both phases of this study means that the hypothesis of adding music and movement to traditional sight word instruction would increase students' kindergartners' sight word skills cannot be supported because growth was showed during both phases of this study. Thank you.